Joker?
man, that
Did you see
Joker,
the new
that
movie? The
was,
new
oh
Joker?
man, that was,
Did you see
as a
the
mental health professional, I was just like, that movie really opened up some doors, and it was a great portrayal. I mean, he got his just due. He should have got it a while back, when he did that country singer one, but he did his thing, and he definitely made an impact. And maybe just reevaluate how I see clients in some ways.
Yeah, so you're a mental health professional. What exactly do you do? Because talking about the Joker movie and seeing how mental health affects him, it's really interesting.
I'm a community-based therapist, so I go into people's homes and do therapy.
Oh,
Most of my
really?
clients are assigned as crisis cases or more acute cases, and they don't really typically do well in an office setting. And I go to them, and I find that it's more impactful, more beneficial to go to them, because then you can really see what's going on versus when you're in an office setting, they may be put off by the desk, the power structure, and they may not be as open and honest about what's going on with them. So you can't really make as much progress.
Yeah, that does make sense. I mean, especially when you're talking about scientific studies, there's
Right.
observational studies where there's a real reason why they do observational studies, and it's typically because people are less inclined to act differently when they're
Right.
in their own environment and in public. So I definitely think that that's very interesting and very important that
Yes.
people
Yes.
are educated and provide therapeutic remedies in their own environments.
Right. With the stressors that impact them that you can see versus the ones that they speak on. It may not be as acute as speaking on it in an office setting, oh, nothing's going on, man, or ain't nothing, da da da, or be very minute in their approach to telling what's going on versus when you're there. You walking into the building or you walking into the house or debilitated house, you can see the stresses impacting them. If they say they're not drinking, you can observe bottles, or they say they're not doing drugs, you can see residue of drugs. So you kind of get a better feel of what you're working with and how to address it.
So how long do you typically go out into the house for? Are you there for a couple hours? I mean,
No, 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 no. Outpatient therapy, 1 hour typically, sometimes a little more, very few times a little bit less.
so how often are you on site?
1 to 2 times a week per person.
Really? Okay,
Yes.
this sounds. I just got my master's degree. This sounds nice. But this
This
is
you got to be built for it. Everybody's not built for it. I've been doing it since 2009, and I don't know. I have an office. I have a private sector section too, and I have some office clients, but I just found that I see the work more meaningful when I do it in the home, when I do it in the community.
right. It's interesting that you say that because I definitely noticed when I was working in the mental health field that there were um, a number of people that would be seen as caregivers or care providers, but the burnout rate is just ridiculous.
Oh, it is. You got to take care of yourself. You got to build wellness into your agenda, just like you build your 9 to 5 into your agenda. And that's what we fall short. We work, we work, we work. Then we document. So it's added stressors, and we're not building wellness into our agenda. And that's why I see a high burnout as
Yeah.
well. That's why I built my nonprofit based on that, to give support, to give that grounding, that foundation of wellness and recovery to the clinicians in the field.
That's interesting. So, what is your nonprofit?
My nonprofit is more than therapy, and that's because the people that I work with, the people that I interact with, are doing more than therapy. They're advocates, they're cheerleaders, they're supports, case managers, and I think that sometimes they just need additional support. A lot of times, people get these degrees, and they don't have the licensure, supervisors anymore, so they're not getting additional support. They're not having somebody to bounce ideas off, fear of being judged, or they just don't have that type of cohort in place anymore. And I find that those people tend to burn out, and when they burn out, they can be very detrimental to the welfare of that client or that client base, doing drugs with them, or giving them advice, or not even interacting with them appropriately, because I believe that an outpatient therapy authorization is basically medicine, or basically your prescription. And if you're not giving them what they need, then they're not going to get well.
Hmm. Do you think the current because it's interesting that you say you model your business around um, giving people support. Do you think that the current grind culture of today's 9 to 5 is contributing at all?
That, and if you work for an agency, they might be their initial, I don't know what they call it, their mission statement might be about empowering and building the community, da da da. But that mission statement, starts to gray. It's still there. That's their solid statement. But you see it's a monetary thing, a productivity thing, money over everything. And sometimes they'll dangle the carrot in front of you. So you go after the money. You go for the extra sessions in order to get more money. And all in essence, you're really burning yourself out because you're not taking care of your own wellness. You're not taking care of your own self because you're not writing your notes in the sessions. You're writing your notes after the session, which is usually after your 9 to 5, if that's what your typical work hours. So you're reliving that stress.
Yeah, I find it very difficult. I was working a 9 to 5 at one point, and I found it very difficult to take care of myself during the 9 to 5. It's not that I didn't have time; I was just so tired.
Right.
It got to the point to where I would wake up, and so I'd have to be at work by 9. Actually, it was more of a 8 to 4 job. But even still, getting out, I mean, you got to go to bed by like
Right.
10 o'clock. That leaves less than 6 hours to do anything. That doesn't count travel time,
Right.
and that doesn't count waking up or anything like that. And it was difficult to manage 6 hours.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, personally, if you're constantly looking at like social media, or if you're looking at if you have any hobbies that you like to do. I mean, I like to play games, but I found that I couldn't do any of that. I mean, it was 6 hours to do.
I'm looking at an Xbox One. I'm looking at a PS3. I was thinking about, it's time to upgrade, but then I'm like, I haven't touched either of you
Yeah.
in 2 years.
Hey, man.
My girl is like, hey, let me get you a PS5. For what?
Hey, man, I upgraded to a PC. Never upgrade again. Telling you.
Yeah, that's how I'm thinking. That's the direction I'm moving in. I bought a laptop that's a gamer laptop, cost a couple grand, and I love it. I'm not using it for no games. I haven't used it for games yet, but that was the plan.
Yeah.
But it's a killer video machine, and you can make great videos and great music.
Oh, perfect. We got some people tuning in. So we got Randall saying, hey, Dylan. My mom saying, excellent subject matter. #1 issue. Lex saying, bwomp, bwomp. What's up, Legs? David, long time no see, buddy. What's up, everybody? Mentally exhausted, says Randall Travis. I think that's in regards to the comment where working a 9 to 5 is just...
That can be exhausting too, especially during the pandemic. I mean, it's like the jobs aren't given no leeway for the most part regarding just overall wellness. I mean, imagine the stress we had normally before the pandemic, back before March. That was just a normal stress. We kind of dealt with it. Some of us weren't doing as well even then. But then the pandemic hit. It's almost like a multiplication table on the stresses that we're experiencing. I don't even have to think about the COVID, but the media that I'm exposed to on Facebook or Instagram or on TV, which I hardly ever even turn on anymore. Boom. Even the movies you see now, some of the movies I watch on Amazon, people are wearing masks. And so it's like a reminder, like, damn, we're still in this,
Yeah. Well, thank you, Cade, for the sub. Beautiful. Thank you, buddy. Crook saying, what's up, guys? Has your workload increased at all since COVID hit? Like, have you noticed like an impactful percentage?
Not so much. And let me tell you why. The people that are basically my clients, or the type of people that have become my clients, have been going through stressors and traumas and crises their whole adult life, and maybe even before that. I find that the people who haven't been through such crises, haven't been through such stressors, are the ones that's breaking down. And they don't necessarily qualify for my type of therapy because mine is more crisis driven, and they may not see their situation so much as a crisis. It doesn't drive them to be hospitalized or anything like that. So I find that my client caseload, for the most part, is stabilized.
Really?
My clinicians that I work with, that I do therapy with, that I consult with, they're the ones that are acting more like clients than the clients themselves during this very difficult time.
It's funny that you say that. Dell just joined the chat and he says, what's up? But him and I work with individuals with intellectual disability. And, sometimes when we're working with these guys, they have care providers that, sometimes we're just like, we feel like you could be a client, man.
There you go. So, real talk. It's like people, and it's like the supervisors or their overseers don't supervise them appropriately, and they keep on slipping into negative behaviors, which, like I told you before, negatively impact the client, and it does damage to the client. Some that might not be repairable. They may not trust another mental health provider and get worse and worse off, and then have to be long-term hospitalized. Something that the America moved away from in the 80s, but might be an uptick if these clinicians are burning out and do damage to the clients that I'm seeing in some cases.
I'm curious now. What is your opinion on criminal justice reform then?
It needs to be overhauled, and
Really?
this current political climate that we find ourselves in definitely should be an open door to that overhaul, but not likely to happen in our lifetime.
Yeah,
Not to the degree that I would want it to happen.
I think I'd have to agree with you. I think that rehabilitation aspects of a lot of these other countries that have low recidivism rates,
Mm-hmm.
I think that that is important. I think that that's a key aspect. I think our criminal justice system is a business now, sadly,
Yes. Yes.
and I really pray and hope that there's some sort of rehabilitation reform to decrease recidivism.
I know in the county where I work in Durham County, North Carolina, and like for drug cases, previously you might have been jailed, you might have done some time, you might have been in prison for a couple of times or whatever, however long. But now they have what they call drug courts and so they mandate that they go to mental health and substance abuse treatment. They mandate that they go to so many classes of substance abuse or to a specialized substance abuse program called substance abuse intensive outpatient program.
Mm,
And that seems to be reducing. Well, we haven't seen all the evidence yet,
right,
but in
right.
my opinion, it would be lessening the recidivism because you're addressing the actual issue of why they were being jailed or why they were being in prison or why they were participating in maladaptive and illegal activities, which was because an output of those substance abuse issues. A lot of the clients I have are referred from such programs, referred from such court proceedings, and I find that if they're willing to do the work, it's very unlikely for them to go back into those negative behaviors and repeat those jail sentences. And then of course there's that carrot dangling in front of them. You will do significant jail time if you don't do this.
Yeah, it's like a lot of these, like what you were saying, the rehabilitation programs for recovering addicts, it's like, if there's a problem with the stimulus, you take away the stimulus.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that that's very good. I know in the last election specifically, there was a lot of um, laws pertaining to drugs, and
Right.
especially in Oregon. So Oregon decriminalized a lot of drugs,
I
like
saw that.
dealing with
Yes.
cocaine, dealing with methamphetamines, magic mushrooms, LSD. It's crazy.
Right.
And it's like drugs are winning the war on drugs. I just say it lightly, but it's. I think it's the step in the right direction. Not that I think I think we should help the recovering addicts stay away from drugs, and I don't know if that's the right path, but I think that is just a good example of how we're rethinking our criminal justice system as it pertains to drugs.
Yeah, Oregon definitely stepped up and set a high bar. It definitely, I don't know what all the details of their laws and how it works and whether or not they mandate, treatment or things like that when somebody is caught or inebriated or anything like that. But still, just the fact that you take out the legal aspects that you will have to do this much jail time, those mandated sentences were ridiculous. You know what I'm saying? Those
Yeah, ain't
laws
that
that were put
crazy?
into place where you got this much of crack cocaine, you did this many years automatically, not putting the person, not putting the situation into perspective, just looking at the amount of drugs. And that was very debilitating to many communities.
Yeah, ain't that crazy?
Yes.
That's
Yes.
just nutty. I mean, I was reading a book recently, and they were talking about how um, they typically take into consideration the person in what they view. I think the book is called Thinking Fast and Slow. Great psychology book if anybody's interested in chat. But what they were talking about is the fact that when you're taking into consideration someone who did some sort of specific behavior, you very rarely think about the circumstances leading up to it, and
Right.
more or less what you perceive that person's behavior to be in the presence of that circumstance.
Right.
So they seldomly take consideration on, you know, where did this person grow up, what kind of environment were they in, you know, was it more likely to have, you know, high rates of drug use, you know, what was the family dynamic like. You know, they don't think about the ways that people kind of get into these situations where if we did, we could sort of take them out. And I've always found that interesting. Like, why aren't we doing that?
There you go. That's real talk. What's that book again? I would definitely like to look at
Thinking Fast and Slow. It's like your brain has like two systems. One is like an automatic emotional response, and then the second one is where you can actually, you know, put energy into something and think about it logically. But your brains are lazy, so we mostly think with system one.
Right.
Unless we decide that, you know, there's an error in the processing, and then system two deliberately steps in to exert energy. And so it's really about energy consumption.
Okay.
So it's really interesting. It's I forget the author's name, but it has a lot of psychological concepts talking about statistics and how we don't like to view things as a loss in terms of numbers, or even if it's presented the same way. So, for example, if I told you you would lose like $1,000 today, or, you know, you would gain like a certain amount over the next couple days or something like that, but lose $2,000, you would still rather lose like a certain amount. I can't explain it very well off the top of my head, but it's very interesting read.
Okay, definitely. I'll definitely look at that. I have a Scribd account, so I'm definitely gonna book game.
You have a what account?
Scribd, Scribd. It's like a book library thing. You pay $7.99 or something a month, and you have access to all these books and magazines and documents. I love it.
Awesome. I do Audible. I know people say it's cheating, but I like listening to books a little bit better. I'm a busybody, so I can't sit there. My body just won't let me sit there and read.
I got you.
It's just not that entertaining. So I usually put on like an audiobook when I'm at the gym or something like that, and kind of entertain myself while I'm doing it.
Yeah, that was me pre-pandemic. Bam, go, go, go. Energizer Bunny, go, go, go. And then boom, the pandemic hit, and I was forced to sit still. And I found a lot of solace in keeping and being still. You know, I have a lot more clarity. I removed a lot of negativity from my life, and I find myself on a clearer, more definitive path for myself.
Do you think that's happened with a lot of people?
A lot of people that I talk to, yes.
Do you think
if they open their minds, they have to open their mind to it. Like, they have to really look at it. Some people are like, oh, woe is me. And that might have been people that might have been really impacted it. They might have caught it, or knew somebody that caught it. I knew a couple of people that caught it. I think I might have caught it in February. But just looking at the fact that, you know, I had some conferences scheduled. I had some discussion forums scheduled. I had some big events coming, you know, regarding my company. And boom, all they got, we're moving to Zoom. We're moving. I was like, I don't want to do Zoom. We pull out. And they're just being still, not going to LA, not going to Arizona, not going to these places to do these conferences and discussion forums. And boom, I sat still. Had a book in my head for, 15 years or more. Finally sat down and wrote a book. Have another book in my head that's been there for maybe 12 years, starting on that, writing on that. Connected with people that I disconnected from over the years for whatever reason, you know what I'm saying? Remove people from my life who was currently in my life that I don't necessarily need to be in my life, that don't benefit me. Boom, you know what I'm saying? A lot more clarity came from it. The pandemic for me was a curse and a blessing.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people will look back and say the same thing. I mean, granted, I haven't been able to go out and do everything that I wanted to do, but at the same time, it's allowed me the opportunity to kind of develop myself and think about myself a little bit more in depth. And some of the people that I've talked to have kind of felt the same way. It's as if the pandemic itself has been this solitary journey, and inward mostly instead of outward, because usually, typically, like we were talking about, people are going. Luckily, you know, the gym's my outlet. That's pretty much the only place I go to. But other than that, I'm pretty much at home because I work from home. And, you know, it's just me, myself, the dogs, and my wife. So, you know, getting into my head a little bit a couple times, I have been into some weird places, been in my
Yeah.
head. But overall, it's allowed me to kind of develop myself in a way that I think I wouldn't have found otherwise.
There you go.
So it's been
Blessing and a
interesting.
curse.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
has been. Yeah, 100%. But let me get to some of these comments real quick.
All right.
We got my mom still in here. Oh, Randall saying, I love the background. And then Gina saying, every living human being has either dealt with mental health or is currently dealing with it. The only way you can... Oh, what is going on? Oh, there we go. The only way you can be of sound mind is to remain in Christ. Hashtag advocate for Christ. And my mom is a big proponent or advocate for Christ.
Yes.
And then we have Randall saying, how does your family go with your mental illness? What? Like, are you asking, like, how does your family impact your mental illness? Is that what you're asking? I want to clarify that first. You are seeing a rise in suicide, including children under 10 due to mental health. Are you saying that in response to the pandemic, or are you saying that just in general? I meant to say to deal with, not go with. How does your family deal with your mental health? Is that what you mean? The opioid crisis formed from prescription drug overuse. And then Dell says, they look at circumstances for some people. The one guy in Texas got off because affluenza.
Yeah.
Being
that
rich.
was a crazy case. Ooh, that was a crazy case. And then
What
he got in
happened with that
trouble
one?
again.
What happened with that one?
He was the judge said, "Oh, we're not going to punish you because you don't understand. You're rich, so you don't understand the crime that you committed." Gave him a little slap on the wrist. You know what I'm saying?
Ain't that crazy?
Somebody presented in this court that had a different background and gave him the ultimate sentence. You know what I'm saying? So like
Ain't that crazy?
Yeah.
How people can just get off just because you have money.
Right. Sure. Give me some of that money.
Right. Just start our own island, man.
You know
do whatever
what I'm
we want,
saying?
man. Start our own government. I'm sure the USA would be happy with that.
There you go. For people, for the person who's speaking about the family can get support and can learn more about your mental health diagnosis and how to effectively work with you and support you through groups like NAMI, N-A-M-I, and they're pretty much nationwide. You just look out for a local NAMI chapter in your area. That's N-A-M-I. Don't ask me what it stands for. I don't know. Oh, National Association of Mental Illness. There you go.
He said, because of my mental health, my family shut me out. That's why I wanted to ask him how his family deals with it.
My family?
Yeah, I'm assuming so.
Oh,
okay. Your family deals with
my mom was diagnosed with bipolar 2 disorder. I'm diagnosed with bipolar 2 disorder, PTSD, and anxiety. We deal with it because we learn about it. We educate ourselves, or we get educated, and we go to support groups via NAMI. I go to NAMI group. I facilitate 2 NAMI groups, and by facilitating, I'm actually participating as a participant in the NAMI group. So I'm gaining from that as well as me facilitating it. I'm sorry that your family has shunned you in that way, but I believe that if you give them the resources to learn more about it, as well as how to effectively support you, a lot of times our behaviors when we have a mental health breakdown or because we're not medically being treated or therapeutically being treated, some of the things we've done may have offset them. But if we're doing what we're supposed to be doing now and they can see it, I believe that support can come back depending on the situation.
Do you think that mental health is kind of becoming less stigmatized?
Yes, and I believe that media has been a big focus on that. Joker, like we talked about earlier, was definitely a movie that opened that door. But for those that don't believe in comic books and all that stuff, shows on HBO. There's that one that Drake produced. I can't think of the name right now. But
Degrassi?
well, yeah, but no, this is a show from HBO. That's on Canada Channel. But it's like different shows, different TV shows, different movies that expose it. And sometimes they over dramatize it, but I mean, for the most part, I believe that we see less stigma, especially on social media. The TikTok trends are amazing. I see so much enlightenment, empowerment in some of the TikTok trends about education. Yeah, we see a lot of hot mess, a lot of dance crazes, But I do see some education there too. My daughter forwards me a lot of those, and I was like, oh, like, wow, these young people have a lot of insight at such a young age that I never would have had at that age 20 years ago.
My fear is that these, like for example, TikTok. Like,
Hmm.
my fear is that it will sort of become oversaturated to the point to where people don't care anymore.
Okay.
And that's been a growing fear of mine, is that, when we talk about depression or mental health, yeah, I see a lot of people talking about it and a lot of people bringing awareness to it and bringing awareness to suicide.
Hmm.
What's interesting to see is the amount of people and how fast it's growing. And just like anything else, the more you see it, the more you become desensitized to it. So I fear that although we're bringing awareness to it, I fear that we're bringing awareness maybe too quickly and too copious. And I feel as though that it's saturating the actual meaning of definition, or the actual meaning of some of the mental health problems. Because I have seen some of the other issues that I have with a lot of the mental health social media accounts is it's become
Yes.
like a trend now.
Yes. Yes.
It's become like its own niche, its own clique, and I'm like, look, literally, like you're just talking about it because it's the next big thing, and you're. I think it's good that we're talking about it, but again, I think we're hitting that level of saturation where I think it might desensitize people.
I agree, but at the same time, I believe that that saturation opens up more avenues to get help. Like we have those online
That's fair.
therapist things now that we wouldn't have had if we didn't really get that awareness
Yeah.
factor going in. People are, they got that text, that suicide text line, 721-721,
Mm-hmm.
things like that. So even though I do agree with you, but I believe it's a necessary evil, if that makes sense.
I get it. I get it. And yeah, I know it's opened a lot of doors for a lot of these programs to come in, and they've been very beneficial. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. I think that, again, spreading awareness is a good thing. I'm curious to see where it goes.
Yes, yes, yes. And then we live in a very interesting time that seems to be hyper focused on it, as it probably should be. The pandemic has, caused a lot of us to become more symptomatic than previous times.
Right.
We'll see what the fallout is. I mean, we're going to be in this for a while, at least until March.
Hmm. That is true. At least until March. Oh man, dude. I hope not. I hope Corona goes away, man. I'm trying to go to the beach. I'm trying to go on a cruise, man.
And I'm right there with you. I'm sitting on these points. I'm like, man, I had to cancel trips that I paid for a year in advance. Like, oh, I guess we won't be going to Kenya again. Well, damn.
Oh, it's done really. We were supposed to go to Japan this past year. We were supposed to go to Japan in August or September, and we had to cancel that whole thing because they're not letting any Americans in.
Right,
And
of course, we're disgusting.
I'm really upset. I'm like, people, wash your damn hands, please. Wash your hands so I can go to Japan. That's all I want to do.
No doubt. Every country just about got it under control. We're the ones sitting out there like an uptick in numbers as of late. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, man.
I think we'll see it. I think it'll slow down a bit now that we don't have those campaign runs and all that stuff. I think a lot of that might have been caused by a lot of those open venue type of socialization. I think we'll see a slowdown. The only concern is now we got a holiday coming up, Thanksgiving, and different households coming together into one household. You know what I'm saying? That we might see an uptick again.
It was really weird to not see anybody on the street at all for Halloween.
I was thankful because I didn't want to buy any candy.
Fair, very fair. Oh man, I was driving to a friend's house and I was driving through my wife's neighborhood to get there, and I was like, "There's nobody here." Typically I'd be looking out for kids everywhere, but
right.
nah, man,
and I'm really thankful that they pull back on that because we got some really sick people. A lot of people, might be at home. They might not have the best intentions for our children, for our youth. And yeah, we can check the candy all day, but if you want to be nefarious and get away with something, you think about it long enough, and we have plenty of time to think about some things. Yeah. So I'm really glad they asked that for this year. And it's not the biggest holiday. I mean, we shouldn't be focused so much on that anyway.
Yeah, I'm more of a Christmas guy anyways.
Yeah, yeah.
So, I mean, my wife's already trying to get me to put up the Christmas tree, so
There you go.
I think that's my obligation this week. That's my responsibility. Got to put it up.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
definitely.
I mean, I'd much rather this thing kind of go away and we kind of get things back to normal for Christmas.
Yes, definitely. But reality doesn't speak to that. At least not here on the East Coast.
I know. So where you at on the East Coast, man?
North Carolina.
Oh, you ain't far at all, man. We down in Georgia, right next to each other.
Okay. I got family out that way. Okay, we probably cross paths one day.
Yeah, probably. We had a very interesting election season, so.
Oh yes, and you're about to have another one, January 5th, 2021.
I know we have that runoff coming up because it's getting crazy down here.
Oh yes.
Interestingly enough, although I think Georgia voted blue for the presidential election, I'm not so confident that we'll vote blue for the runoff.
Oh, I hope we do though. But then again, I don't know. But I do hope we do.
Well, here's the reason why. All right, here's the reason why. And I was talking to a couple people about this last week and over the weekend. I think that what happened with this past election is it was more or less to get Trump out. It wasn't about Biden. It wasn't about Biden being a better choice than Trump. It was that Trump was just not fit for office.
Right.
And so that's what people were voting against in the election, the primary.
Right.
So I don't think that Georgia's the same can be said for
the Senate.
Yeah, the Senate and governors. So I'm not confident that we're going to switch. We're going to flip states.
And the votes were so close that, if it's typically a red state, it's probably going to be a red state. And we won't get that same love in 4 years from now, in my opinion.
Right. And you have a political podcast, right? Where you guys talk about political commentary?
Yes. So Monday, 7 p.m., Politics with Mercer Prescott and his band of eclectic cronies.
I love that name. That's fantastic. Politics. That's actually really catchy.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's, no matter who's in office. It's
the chicanery about it.
It's not going to benefit you anyway. You know what I'm saying? It's going to either take from you or give to the wrong people. It's just, we live in some very interesting times. It reminds me of my LA days, red and blue.
Yeah.
Crips and Bloods. It's just disgusting that we can't, just work together. And maybe Biden did promise that he'll try to unify, but people are people.
I'm optimistic as I am with most presidents. I mean, I'm typically more independent, so I vote based off policy.
Same here. For this reason, I did do a straight Democratic ticket. So I'll be honest with that.
That's fine. And listen, I don't see that's my biggest issue this past year is seeing everybody, fight over political issues. Right. And it's been like, oh man, dude, we need to chill out. I feel like we're losing our negotiator voice.
There you go. Our collaboration voice. Let's work together and negotiate voice.
Yeah.
It's like, if I can believe you believe that, so I'm going to believe that too, because we're in the same gang. And even though I don't believe that, honestly, I'm going to support you regardless. And that's what we're seeing a lot of. And that's why I voted the way I voted, because I felt like if you could support that type of negativity wholeheartedly, you know what I'm saying? No matter what your policies are, if they fall under that type of hatred, I couldn't get with it.
Yeah, I've seen it on both sides, and it's been just completely atrocious to see people talk about the other party as if that their ideas were the only ideas that were present, or their ideas. And it's been so divisive. It's been really frustrating to not. I've literally had to hold myself back on saying things on social media because I don't want my words to be construed through just text. I mean, you don't know the tone that I'm saying it. You don't know that
based on an ideology of politics, which is only one aspect of my thinking.
Yeah, it is like
judged wholeheartedly by that stance, in my opinion.
It's so, and some people just might not know. The other side. They just might truly be ignorant to the other side, and it's the other party's job, which regardless of which side you're on, to educate them on why your side is right, not to tell them why they're wrong, but why you're right. And that's the whole meaning of the political discourse.
Right.
That's the whole point of the Second Amendment.
Right.
Or the First Amendment, sorry, Second Amendment. Yeah, I got Second Amendment all day. First Amendment.
What hurt me is that people that, I genuinely loved, were not on the same page that I was on and supported hatred. And it was just I didn't do like my friend Mercer Prescott of Politics did. Like, he just deletes, you know what I'm saying? He blocks. I didn't do that, but just looking at them through a different lens. And it's just like, damn,
See, that's what
sad.
I'm afraid of. I'm afraid people are going to start doing that. I'm afraid people are going to start blocking people that disagree.
Yeah.
And it's just going to polarize us on specific topics, because now if I start blocking all the people, I forbid myself to block anybody on Facebook or social media or Twitter or whatever you call it, because I don't want to be so polarized or biased to the point to where I'm reading only what I believe in. Right. So if I block the people I don't agree with, or I block the people that are, shouting hate, then I'm never going to understand their point of view. Maybe I believe behavior is a route of communication. Right. I mean, I work with autistic individuals all the time. Mm-hmm. So the way that autistic individuals communicate is through behavior.
Right.
And they might not behave in the way that you want them to, because they don't have the language necessary to behave in the way that you want them to, or to communicate their skills. And so I try not to block people that are saying these outrageous things, even on both sides. Right. It's crazy. I try not to do that, because I know they're trying to communicate something, but this is the only way they're trying to this is the only way they can communicate.
There you go.
And I'm like, all right, well, let's figure out what you're trying to say. I mean, if it's complete ignorant, then after we've discerned that, all right, then we understand it's complete ignorant.
Right.
But if there might be some truth or something to it, we got to understand, what is coming through. So that's just my philosophy. Just trying to figure out what people are trying to say.
That's real talk. Hey, I don't block anybody, anything like that. I did see I lost a lot of followers on Instagram, but because, I do post advertisements for my politics show. And some of those pictures I use, well.
What's your Instagram, man? We'll drop that in chat so everybody can go follow.
Mr. Blue, MISTERBLUE_net.
Okay, cool. So we're gonna drop that follow, and then we're gonna make sure that we get some people in there to say, hey, give you some followers. Get those followers back up. You know what I'm saying?
There you go. I ain't concerned with that. If they unfollow, they unfollow for a reason.
Amen. Well, that's what we've tried to create with Daydreams, right? It's that we actually, what was interesting is during the election process, on election day, on one of the 5 election days that we had, so we had like I hate to say safe space, but we had a safe space for people to come in and start talking about their political side or their viewpoints, and we literally had people on both sides of the spectrum, and it was just beautiful to kind of see, people sort of connecting ideas, or it wasn't argumentative, but I got to see people, debate their topics or debate their ideas. And I, as a mediator, just kind of stepped back and let it happen. Yeah. So it was interesting. Mr. Know-It-All, Dell says, Daydreams, there are bad people on both sides.
Send me a link to the episode. I want to see that.
Yeah, fantastic. That's it right there. There are bad people on both sides.
Definitely. We definitely live in some we've always lived in interesting times. Ain't no need to say we starting to live them now.
Yeah, I think Dell has said that before. Dell has said, what is it that you always say, Dell? That, we're just now really seeing it. There's always been there. We're just really now seeing it, kind of thing. But it's always been interesting. I've always kind of taken a step back and tried to be the mediator.
There you go. Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Well, I thank you, man. I mean, I couldn't do what you're doing. I mean, talking about political discourse and everything. I just try and listen. That's it. So,
Well, it's like our audience, they may not be as hip to some of the things that may impact them in politics. So I just want them to get more involved, and education is a good way to be involved.
Right. Education. I think that will that helps the media
Right.
teaching people to critically or teach how to think, um, what to think.
Right.
Important.
And that everything you see ain't reality. Media is a very, very, very bad girl.
I 100% agree. I think people, it's hard for them to see reality from someone else's point of view.
Right.
It really is. Even if it's so vague, it's so foreign.
Right. Because it's concrete. And then, just accept that different point of view. Just basically undoes everything that you learn. And nobody wants that. It's a shock. It's a stressor. Like, oh, no, that can't be true. I have to hold on hard to what I believe, as wrong as it may be. And then who's to say what's wrong or right? DSM-3 said homosexuality was a mental health disorder. So I mean, time, culture changes, time changes.
Yeah. Wow, ain't that crazy? My mom says at Randall, the reason why your family didn't deal with it is because they didn't want to deal with their own mental health issues. And then Randall says, read my comment above, Dylan. And where is your comment, buddy? Let's go up here. I graduated from physical therapy. I only need my chair for long distance walking now. Let's go, Randall. Let's go. He also said, plus Dylan knows about my other situation. Speaking of that, I got an update for you. Okay, message me on Instagram after. Okay. Restream bot. Congrats. At Restream, what? What is the Restream bot? I don't know. Okay. But yes, thank you. Thank you so much. This has been Mr. Khristopher Blue. I thank you so much for coming out tonight and having this discussion with me and
yes, sir. Thank you for having me.
Getting to know you a little bit, man. I hope to keep up with you, follow you a little bit more. We'll keep up to date.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you. Thank you for all that you do.
I appreciate you too, man. I'm gonna keep you on this side real quick. I'm gonna actually raid somebody on this side. So give me 1 second. /raid. Official. I think that worked, right? Invalid. I'm so sorry, guys. Give me 1 second. I'm so sorry. I put a space where I shouldn't have put a space. That is the right way. Oh, there's 2 eyes. Oh my goodness. I'm so sorry, guys. Give me 1 second. This is the awkward silence part. This is awkward. Yes, isn't it, Amon? I love you, buddy. /raid. Here we go. These raid transitions are rough. I know, guys. Look, I'm working on them, okay? I am trying here. Okay. Now, we finally got it. Okay, don't forget to smash that like button if you're on YouTube. #Daydream. I love each and every one of you. Thank you for coming out tonight. Thank you. This has been Mr. Khristopher Blue. Go follow him on Instagram. Thank you so much. Take it easy, guys. Have a great evening.